We're really happy to join these powerful women. My name is Marta Elisa Armas-Orellana. It is a very long name, but I am the head of integrated planning at Pernod Ricard USA, and I also serve as the chief of staff to our CMO. So really, everything that comes together from a portfolio standpoint with marketing. My team is a bit of that glue that keeps the wheels moving with a pretty powerful team that's executing it. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here, and Daneyni, thanks for moderating.
Well, thank you both for joining. Before we start this question, I just wanted to just explain a little bit of what we're going to be talking about today. And I think that, a lot of us in the call and also here, we are leaders of people. So we have people that we manage, but we also manage our own schedule. So I think that everybody here is a manager of something or of someone. And in this particular month, as we are now celebrating Mental Health Awareness Month, there is something that we have that inviting us to pause and to be honest about how are we actually managing and how are we actually coping with that leadership that we have. And I think that not everybody seems to be performing 100%. So the conversation today is just to be very honest, is understanding what is sustainable leadership is about. It's about what is ambition and what is ambition with intention. It's about shifting the way that we lead, how we carry every day, and also talking about overextension. I'm going to share a couple of stats so that we can start thinking about this conversation before I ask question. 72% of leaders say that they are carrying responsibility that should sit with their teams. That's something that we heard recently in the leadership overload study from 2 years ago, and a similar result from this year, from the 2025 as well. 68% of managers report that they regularly take on work that should be delegated. And I highlighted those two words for a reason. Should sit with someone else, meaning that we're carrying the load that shouldn't be ours. And then that should be delegated. And as leaders, those are kind of things that sometimes we have to balance and that we deal with. So, Lainey, I wanted to start with you to ask a question. When you think about responsibility in the leadership today, how do you personally navigate that shift from carrying it all like a backpack or choosing what you carry? So that is the first question that I have for you, Lainey, based on what we shared at this moment.
Thank you, Daneyni. This conversation is really, I would say, one of great interest to me because we're all being asked to do a lot more with less, move faster, deliver results, and still stay grounded in who we are and our leadership. So this tension is real. I think we're all feeling it. Really, regardless of what level you're in, I know you know that, and share that sentiment. So for me personally, I'll start first by saying that, um, I, in the very early stages of my career and still today, I see responsibility a little bit different. So I think some of it is also framing a bit how we see things. And for me, it's really been more about an inner drive. And so the very early stages, it was about growing, learning, having more. Being able to be sort of taking on additional projects and things like that, and then over time it's become much more about being intentional and purposeful and really knowing where it is that my leadership is going to make an impact, not trying to be everything to everyone. It takes time to get there, um, but it's a real sort of deliberate choice that you make every single day in terms of how you're going to show up. And with all of the priorities that we have, where do we really need to focus, and having that clarity? So I would say for me, responsibility has been a lot about growth, trust by the organization. I've raised my hand, many times to have additional responsibilities, but sometimes, as you grow, you have to balance that with um, things that are happening in your life. So there's that piece as well. So sometimes that power can shift, and it could be seasonal as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like the seasonal piece. I think that a lot of the time, and when you mentioned early that regardless of where where you stand, as a junior manager or even as a senior manager, there is that balance that we also need to understand. And the definition that you have for framing responsibility, it was interesting concept there. Martha, would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up the framing piece, because I do believe it's about how you frame. For me, the idea of responsibility, I see it as a power versus pressure. And
Mhm.
why this matters, it shifts from me feeling that I need to carry everything. And instead, and Lani touched on this, it's being much more intentional about what I carry and why I do it. So it's not about showing, doing more, and it's more about making clear choices on where I'm going to spend my time and where I'm going to lean in more into.
Well, I really love that piece there, just making clear choices. And I think it's difficult for some people to understand. That's part of the, prioritization. Like, how do we make sure that we are actually looking at and listing what are those key priorities that we spend more time? And on that note, like, it's about expectation as well. So when we're looking at as leaders and we're seeing like all of the responsibility or all of the power that you have in your hand, or any reframing that you want to give it to them, like, think about everyone else in this audience from different stages right now. We all have different expectations and understanding what responsibility, is like. So what expectation do you think make leaders feel like they have to hold everything? And how do we start changing that? And I'm going to start with you, Martha, since you started with that clarity.
Yeah, so I think, look, a lot of us grew up believing that being a strong leader meant being always on, always available, always responsive, always being able to absorb pressure without letting it show. But when I think back of the leaders who have shaped me, who have inspired me, they weren't the ones that were carrying everything. They were the ones that were creating clarity and trust in the teams to drive ownership. So I think, just think, as we start changing the norm, we start changing the norm by being more explicit, really being really clear on what your priorities are, what those trade-offs mean, and again, being very clear what you need to focus on, what good looks like. So focus isn't about limitation; it's a leadership skill.
Absolutely. Lainey, would you like to expand on that? I really like that being called as a skill versus, leadership skill versus like having a responsibility that we don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, no, I love everything Martha has said. Actually, I think, um, I don't think it's possible to try to do everything
Mhm.
anymore. Those days are gone. There's just so much coming at us. And I think a lot of it is, we put this pressure on ourselves, as Martha said. And for me, it's as you grow in your leadership and your career, it's also about knowing yourself, right? It's important to know when you've reached that limitation, when you need to recover, when you need to build in, those moments of being able to decompress. So it's just as important to be able to say, I am responsible for all of this, and this is how I'm prioritizing, and I also need a break. And how do you find those moments, throughout your day, your week, to be able to build recovery periods? I think that's something that I learned, the last 5 years, watching great leaders is, they put in those recovery periods along the way. We used to wait for the vacation 6 months from now, and that's what we used to look forward to. Now you have to have something in between all the time, whatever that is, to really help you recover.
I really like that. And I go back to kindergarten. When we were little kids, there were those little breaks that were given to us. You had to have a nap time, you had to have a play time. And I think as we get to adults, we forget that that's intentional. It was ensured because your brain needs those moments to rethink about it and even how you block your day, right? So there are moments in the morning that you're more productive, you can think faster. Your capability of analytical capabilities are clear during the certain times of the day. So even not only like blocking time for resting, but even blocking time to be intentional about what kind of meetings you take. I was just reading an article where they were saying that some great leaders, they actually block the morning to make decisions and then the afternoon for everything else, right? And some people are different, every brain is wired different. Some people are not a morning person. I know one of my favorite lovely person that I know that is one of my two person's favorite person are here on this call today, but there's one that is a morning person that I will not name, but every time she talks to me about her morning schedule, I'm like, I wish one day I can do that, but I'm still not there. I'll get there. I'm an afternoon person, by the way, not a morning person. But the reality is that, like, what I'm hearing from both of you is that we had to become more clear and less hero. So let's not try to be a hero that carry the cape and carry everyone on the shoulder, that you're serving everybody moment. But let's provide clarity. Let's be intentional of what we're doing, and let's not take it all, but let's share those weights, right? I think the other thing that we didn't discuss a little bit here is that when we delegate and then when we share the weight, people around us grow, and our
Yes.
team needs to grow as well as us. So I'm going to move on to our next topic, and it's related as well to this one because it's creating boundaries, right? So one of the stats that I really enjoyed when I was doing a little bit of research for this question, it was that leaders with clear boundaries are 3 times more likely to report high productivity and low burnout. And then the employees with boundary settings, employees with boundary setting managers are 40% more engaged and 30% less stressed. There is something that I have done for the last 10 years, and I know that might sound a little bit like silly, but boundaries doesn't have to be big, right? So one thing that I always tell my team is for emails in your subject line, put a response by, or if I need to attend, because we get so many meetings, so many invitation, and time is so short. And sometimes you have to prioritize. But if you really need to be somewhere and you start talking to your team about something so simple about like, hey, do I really need to be in these meetings? Like, what is the value that I'm going to bring? And even with cross-functional team, right? So we all get our calendar like map. Like I counted one day, I had my team do an analysis about how many meetings that we're getting per week and then per day. And honestly, we cannot have 14 meetings per day. That is not reasonable because at some point you are not providing the right results and you're not giving the right, even responses to things that you need to make decisions, right? So it's okay to ask that question. Do I need to be in that meeting? And if not, can I send someone from my team that might have that? It might be that person that needs to attend, right? So just
Mhm.
little boundaries. So I wanted just to turn it to you guys, just like we can talk about that, right? What are those clear boundaries that we're setting? So Martha, can you think of a moment where setting boundaries actually strengthen your leadership or your team? Either one.
Yeah, so I'm gonna build on what I said earlier, and I actually have two examples to share with the group. I was really energized by this question, and I actually had to put my thoughts together there because there was a lot of ideas or examples that I had. But building on the responsibility as power, um,
Yes.
I've learned that boundaries is where that power actually shows up in practice. So setting boundaries takes courage. It's often easy to just say yes to everything because you're a people
Yes.
pleaser. You want to make sure you're helping, but are you helping or are you enabling a bad habit? Like you have to think about that. So it's far more responsible to be clear about what we're choosing to do, what we're choosing not to do. So for me, boundaries isn't about doing less. It's about being intentional of where I'm putting my energy. And in full transparency, it's something that I'm still working on. So I'm going to share a very practical one that Daneyni, you started talking about, and then a more personal one. So the first one's around admin and thinking time. So often this gets pushed, right? We'll do it at the end of the day. We'll squeeze it in between meetings. But over time, I've realized that pattern was costing my clarity, my energy, and actually
Yes.
making me less of an effective leader because I was being very reactive. So the shift for me has been from getting to more being again more intentional. I block time on my calendar for admin, for prep, for thinking, and I do my best. Again, work in progress to protective. And it's not because it's glamorous work, but it allows me to show up for and be more present for my team. So in practice, and Danae, you gave some really good examples, but this might mean I'm not available right now, but I'll come to you later. Or is this urgent? And setting that boundary helps me move just from reacting to actually just being more thoughtful with what I'm doing. And again, it's something that I'm still practicing because again, I do want to make sure that I'm there for my team, that I am there for my business partners. And Daneyni, if you allow me one more, this is more of a personal one. It's my protected family time. Look, I have a career and I love it. I love it. But most importantly, I'm a mom of two. And so being intentional, sorry, about how I show up for my kids has been an important boundary for me. When I'm not traveling, there's moments that my business partners, my colleagues, my team, they know it's just those moments or time blocks are non-negotiable because I need to drop off my kids. I have two little kids, pickups if I can, or just being present in those key moments. And I treat those moments the same way that I would treat a commitment from work. And again, in full transparency, I've also made peace with the fact that I'm not going to be there in every moment for my kids. But these moments that I will miss is because of work. And that's my reality. And I'm good with it. So I'll leave you with this. And why it matters to me is because what it does for the rest of the team and what it gives permission for others to do. When I block time and step away or name when I'm available, it signals to my team that you don't always have to be on to show that you're committed. And that sustainable impact shouldn't come at the cost of of life outside of work.
It's beautiful. Well said. I mean, Lani, would you like to add to that as well?
Oh, I love that. I love what Marta has said. And also, Daneyni, when you mentioned about the ritual, I've had a morning ritual myself. I think part of setting boundaries is protecting your time. So scheduling those moments, as Marta said, for administration and so on, but also protecting your time. And so for me, a big boundary I have is actually protecting my morning routine. That's, I think, what sets me up for the day. I'm a morning person. I'm able to really, get my exercise, get my thinking, and set myself up for the day. So it's always been really important. And when you work in an international organization and you have, global colleagues and, you're looking at issues from East to West Coast and US and Canada, time zones are different for everyone. And so making sure that you are putting your mask on first, I think is really important. And to Marta's point, it also sets an example for your team, right? That you do take that time for yourself to recover and to be your best. Because what I've definitely noticed is when I am my best, it shows with my team. And when I'm not, it also shows. So it's really important for me to be able to be consistent in trying to do so. I think it's an art and a science at the same time. Not every day is going to be, exactly on point, but every day I have the intention of being able to do that. And, to give an example, when I moved into this position, I was coming from a very specialized global position into a much more general business leadership role. And what drove my success was getting things done. I delivered results all the time. And I had to really shift my thinking in this role. Actually, I'm not responsible for delivering results. So other people are very capable of doing that. And so I needed to adjust the way that I was leading. And a lot of it came down to self-management so that I can give space and room for others. And so that was a boundary I had to create with myself, right? So it's boundaries with others, but it's also boundaries with ourselves in terms of how do we show up.
Well, thank you. I think everyone listening can feel what you both said. I think in a nutshell, we understand that boundaries also create better leadership. And we need to actually think about it and take it seriously. Personal boundaries, what are those key moments that are personal for you that allow you to grow? That was well said. But now I'm going to move to something that bring a word that carries a lot of weight and that we actually discussed it a little bit before even talking about the topic that we're calling today, right? So it's the word ambition. It says that only 1 in 5 employees say their ambition feels sustainable, and burnout risk drop 45% when employees feel that their workload is manageable and aligned with their strength. And for me, I'm going to start talking a little bit about this word because it's a loaded word, and I'm talking about in some cultural context, right? So I'm an immigrant, if you will, from Dominican Republic, Latina. And a lot of the time, there's words that when you come to America, it's very different and well received and well than when you're coming from a different culture. So as I started my career, I felt that I had to hide that I was ambitious because the definition and the frame that I had was maybe not as positive because in some places, and we know it's true, when some people are ambitious, they're used in a negative connotation. And it took a little bit of reframing and understanding and growth as a leader to understand that it is quite positive. And it is more about alignment, it's about impact, it's about creating conditions where I can thrive. And all of a sudden, that word that was a little bit that I was hiding and tiptoeing around to saying in interviews or when people were asking me about me, I was trying to avoid the word at all costs. It became something that I feel like it stopped from being a word that I need to defend for a word that is more like I get to define. So I get to define what ambition is for me every day, and I get to decide what areas of my career I am, leading with ambition and which one are not. So now that I'm, putting that as a context for both of you, I want to start with you, Lani, and just wanted to think about like how do you define ambition over time? Like how's that word ambition has evolved for you over time?
Yeah, great question, Daneyni. I think, sometimes, as you say, ambition could be misconstrued. I think for me, it's been more about my purpose and what's important to me. And then how does my environment motivate me, to be able to achieve that and to align with that. So I've also reframed ambition. I think it's very positive. I think it has a lot to do with your purpose, your why, where you want to go and where you're headed. And I have to say it hasn't always been about getting to a certain place. For me, it's been ambition is very similar to responsibility in terms of having this inner drive that really allows me to um, think about how I use my energy and where I put my energy into to really align with the things that I want for my life and again for my purpose and so on. And I think as I've gotten older, obviously part of my purpose is my well-being, is taking care of my mental state, making sure that I am as strong as possible mentally and physically and spiritually to be able to be the best colleague for my peers and also for my team, the best leader for my team. And so that takes courage. You need to know when to step back. You need to know when to divert. You need to know when to bring others into the situation with you. I have to say that I've been very fortunate to have very strong mentors in my career. I've also always, for the last 10, 15 years, had, coaches, good people that are sounding boards that I can go to that really help me balance when I have challenges in my career and in my life.
Well, that's great. I know, I love that last piece about having people that are important in your life that are coaching you. And I think that sometimes we forget the importance of those persons around us. And we realize, a coach it doesn't have to be necessarily just for career advice. It can be for how to manage your own personal moments. And I think that it is important for us to ensure that we have a board of director around us. Select those key 6 or 8 people. I call them my personal board of directors that are more than just career advisor. I have a board of director for my personal decision, like even when my kids were going to college, I have my group of mothers that already been through that allow me to go and walk with me through that journey. As I'm selecting a new career, as I'm leading somebody new, like there's always people in your board of director that is bringing expertise and advice that allow you to grow. I want to make sure that we're also giving a little bit of time for us to provide practical advice. So I'm going to move on to this last question, just so that we can at least have some micro habits practice that we can share with you. So we heard that micro habits practice daily increases long-term behavior change by 80%. So doing something every day, and Lainey mentioned that she has a habit that she does every morning that I always ask her about. I think that internally I'm trying to see if she's still doing it. If she's going to say that she changed it, I mean, joking. But the reality is that leaders who use simple end of day rituals also report 30% higher mental clarity and 25% lower stress. So I'll give you one example. I had done it, and I've been doing it now for 2 years, where I block my first hour in the morning. And now remember, every morning, everybody starts at different hours, but I block 1 hour every day. And that allowed me to actually, look at email, be less reactive, more proactive, and more intentional what I'm doing. And also like to pause and stay back and realize, do I really need to attend to everything else in that day? So I do that every morning. And it also allowed me to do my spiritual journey, like Lani mentioned early. Like I need to be centered to start my day. One of my goals is to make everyone smile at least once. I enjoy smiling and I enjoy making people happy. So if I do a mental, inventory of my day and I did not make someone smile or a better moment, I feel like my day failed. So that to me is very important. So those are little habits. It's a personal habit, but it's also a very practical habit for me at work with my 1 hour block. So I'm going to now ask both of you, is there any practical or daily habit or weekly habit that you guys would like to share with this audience? Martha,
Um,
will you start? Yes.
yeah, I'll kick off. So, and actually, this I was thinking about this last night, and I started giggling because I actually used this last week. But one of the things that I've started doing, I mentioned to you guys that I'm a mom. There's probably many parents on this call, and we're always on the go. There's work, then there's being a parent, and everything, all the greatness that comes with that. But what I've allowed myself to do, I don't do it on a daily, but I rely on protecting like true reset time. Not like this is just for me. This isn't Martha going and running errands or Martha doing wife duties or mom duties. This is just Martha time. So I'm very intentional about using our wellness days. Lainey, I use my wellness days. So these aren't
Awesome.
vacation
That's what
days.
they're for.
These are, and I love that Lainey actually surfaced this in the beginning of the call, but these aren't vacation days. This is where I'm catching up with me, and it's a
Yes.
true pause. And the activity doesn't matter, but the pause is what really matters. I might go for a hike. I might veg out and watch Netflix or a movie that I haven't watched, but it's about me unplugging and just taking a moment for myself. So, again, we get caught up in the daily grind and
Yes.
without knowing, we become reactive. So doing this, again, I don't do it on a daily, but I do at least do it, I'd say every month. I'm getting better at doing it. As my wellness days deplete, I then use my PTO, but I have to say, I look forward to them. I don't, my husband now knows that they just happen, but that keeps me grounded. It keeps me clear. It keeps me energized. And it's how I sustain my ambition and how I show up with the better version of myself for everything and everyone and for myself. So again, if you guys have it, take PT. It is worth it. It is lovely.
It's lovely. Agree with you. Lainey, what is your practical advice?
Thanks, Martha. I think you should do a testimonial so we can get more employees to use their days that way. So love that. Love that. I would say something similar. Two things for me that have definitely worked, and the two ladies on this call know because they know me a bit more. Running for me is a key habit. Honestly, I sometimes solve my life problems by running. So it not only, recuperates me from a physical perspective, but there's a meditation aspect to it as well, and spiritual, I would say. So for me, running is a key habit that I protect. And it doesn't need to be running; it could be any form of exercise. I think it's really, really important to have a way for you to physically bring out that energy that we hold inside of us. And, we know that it's not just good physically, but also mentally, right? To be able to help really move some of that energy that's in our brains. Um, and then the other one I would say is protecting my time. It might seem simple, but I must fight with my calendar either every day or every other day because things pop up, things come off, things, um, just there's just this monopolizing of your time. And so you have to really think about how is my time being used? Am I going to be able to make an impact here? Is there really any value in me being part of this? And delegating where where you think is appropriate, but really protecting your time. I do that in the mornings with my ritual, as I said earlier, and then throughout the day. At the end of the day, I review the next day. On Fridays, I review the next week. I'm constantly protecting time. Those are the two things I would leave you with.
I appreciate you guys sharing that. And I think I add a third one, another one, which I think is very important for all of us to remember to celebrate at the end of the day something. So I do tend to ask at the end of every meeting or every task what went well, not what could have done better. What went well? We tend to focus on things that always go wrong or what we didn't do. But if you do an inventory every day or every other day of what went well, your mindset for the next day is more positive. You're more confident and you feel that you accomplished more. And it's something that triggers in your brain. So do remember as well that as we're becoming leaders and as you are all stressed, just to remember those are micro moments that you had to celebrate as well. So I want to say thank you to both Lani and Martha for this conversation. But before I say that, I think that one thing that I want to just I guess summarize from this conversation is that well-being is not separate from leadership. What we heard is like it's founded on it. So like we need to make sure that we're practicing little behaviors or wellness that allow us to become not only better leader at work, but also better managers and also better peers, as Lani mentioned. It allows to also be very parenting, like Martha just said, being present at home allows to also be present in other occasions. So when you're thinking about leadership, do not disconnect it from your well-being. Do not think about it as something else. If you do not exercise, but what you like to do is binge watching Netflix, like sometimes that's not Martha mentioned as an example, or if you just feel like cooking or baking, just do something that builds you up and that allow you to think your brain different. Also, you get more creative when you actually disconnect and unplug. So I wanted to just make sure that we are thinking about leadership from different angles, but also taking that into account that wellness is not separate from leadership. So I wanted to now take a time to open up for questions from the audience. If there's any, I think the Color Come team is going to let us know. Wait.
Daneyni, I'm looking at the chat. I don't see any questions coming through.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so I guess if we do not have any questions, I think that what I wanted to then end as is asking again.
Daneyni, there's a question. Sorry to interrupt. There's a question that just came through. Oh, they're coming in. Sorry, let's give it a second.
But to make sure that we give enough time to people. Okay. But I do wanted to, as those questions are coming in, Martha, it's just asking everyone to take a moment to write and for yourself. It's more like a call to action, being in the marketing headset right now. Like promise yourself to take one note and practice it for 1 week. You don't have to be perfect. Like Martha said it a couple of times, I'm still practicing. So if you do not like those practical advice, or if you have something else in mind, just promise yourself to do one for a week and then see how it goes. And then, take another one for a week. But we all had to start somewhere. Martha, can you read one of those questions?
Yeah, so the first question, and Hola Diana, old colleague of mine, is on, and she's asking, how many hours do you spend with your kids? So I'll start. I'll start. So I am a mother of two. I have a 12-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. So I spend a lot of time with my kids when I am home. But I travel quite a bit for work. As I mentioned, I live in California, and I travel probably on average every 4 weeks. And look, again, that's our reality, and that's a choice that I've made, and one that I love because I have a career that I really enjoy. I have a family that I love, and I make it work my own way. It's not going to work for everyone, but one, I have an amazing partner that doesn't help me. He does with me, which is a key unlock for just supporting each other's career. But I spend a lot of time with my kids. They're both in sports. They're both very, very, very active social lives. So if I'm not working at Pernod Ricard, I am an Uber driver driving kids to soccer, baseball, flag football, basketball, track, birthday parties. Spend a lot of time. But then again, they understand. My husband just left for a trip this week. This morning, kids knew you were getting to school early because I need to be on a fireside chat. They get it, but I'm very lucky to have the village that I have, but I spend a lot of time with my kids. Lani and Daneyni might be in a slightly different pace.
My kids are in college, so I spend less time with them than Martha, but I did my fair of share. I have a kid that has travel during his time. He had travel soccer, and the other one played travel track. So I had so many miles when they graduated from high school, not only in my car, but also traveling around. So just like a very supportive husband as well. But the one thing that I will also say is something that Martha mentioned earlier is like, I also made peace when I couldn't be in places, right? So I did not allow that guilty feeling of I couldn't make me feel uncomfortable, because then I made it up in different moments, right? So yes, I might have missed, that you just went, and won, I don't know, the state championship because I happened to be in a conference somewhere else. But when I came back, I make sure that I'm intentional. So anybody that have worked with me know that I turn off my work phone on Fridays. I do not look at my work phone until Monday morning. And it has never bothered me. I did not go to medical school. I am not saving lives. I have a family to take care of. And I've been doing that for over 10 years and I haven't changed it. And it hasn't really impacted my career. So we also have to be intentional and protect those times for our family. Lani, would you like to add?
Sure. I think I'll share a different perspective because I have adult children like Daneyni. So um, trying to get together once a month as a family is like our priority. And thankfully, we're able to do that and vacation together once a year. And obviously, we spend holidays and so on. But one of the things that I've been committed to in my role is actually supporting moms and dads like Martha and helping them be able to have a balanced life and be there for their families in the way that sometimes I fell short in my own personal life, managing, a family and a career at the time, which, was quite different for me as an experience. But I'm very happy to be able to help my team do that today. And it's one of the things I always tell them is I want you to be there for everything that you can for your kids. You tell me how what you need to do that, and I'll support you in that. So
Thank you. I
There's
think it makes for happier leaders as well.
there's a few more questions, and we'll try to get to most of them. What are some examples of end of day rituals that work well for you? Daneyni, you gonna start?
I mentioned mine. I do the inventory of what went well. Like that's
Okay.
something that I've been practicing for a while. You feel you end your day with high energy, confident, and it also allow you to be less stressed for the day. It is super important, and I know that I'm tend to be sometimes more positive than negative in life, but in reality is that ending like psychologically, you actually activate different hormones that allow you to be more positive. So always look for those key moments and look at those key meetings and ask your question, what went well, not what could I have done better.
Awesome. I'm gonna move on to the next one, so maybe we can get through a few of them. So these two are kind of parallel, so I'll read them and then we can answer it. My boss does not believe in taking time off or disconnecting. He believes you should always be available, even if on PTO. How would you recommend managing that? And let me address the other one because it's interlinked. First of all, thank you so much for your time, ladies. I love how open and encouraging you all are about putting wellness at the forefront. How do you suggest dealing with the boss who does not practice blocking time away from work to reset and maybe not as encouraging?
I think Lani should start. Lani.
yeah, that's difficult. I actually I was there a few years back. I would say like 10 years ago. I was in a similar situation, and I think you have to really evaluate um, your why and where you're going, and how that aligns with the workplace culture and your values. I don't think that every environment is for everyone. I do think that, we connect with certain cultures and environments and can be more successful in some than others based on where we are on that journey in our careers and also what's important to us. It takes courage to, set those boundaries. Sometimes, by setting those boundaries, you actually help them see things that they don't see themselves. And so, for me personally, um, I love when my team comes back to me and says, okay, you've asked for this, additional, objective. What's the trade-off? What do I need to do to take something off the list to be able to do this because I can't do it all. And it's really like a great stopping point for me because it allows me to reflect and to think about, well, what am I, how am I impacting not only their work life, but also their home life, right? Because we take these things back to our homes. And having a balanced, for my team to have a balanced life is important to me. So I would say really evaluate where you are, what you want, and whether or not that culture aligns. And if you think it does, really building the courage and having a village to support you in that, in how you confront your line manager on what's important to you.
I think I wanted to add something to what Lani just said, and something that I read recently, and it's just like we always believe that sometimes we don't have control of certain things. And you might be surprised of how much control you have of your personal time sometimes. And the reality is that when you walk out of the doors of the office, unless he follow you home and actually walk into your house and force you, you have the opportunity to turn off. No one can force you to turn off your laptop. No one can force you to turn off your phone. That is just a reality of life. And sometimes it's something that we ourselves need to also set that boundaries and start being afraid of making a choice. And that is a choice that a lot of us, and you might be easy to say, oh, it's so hard, it's easy for you to say, but try to practice it a couple of times and you notice how easy it is. We the same way that sometimes we might be neglecting something personal, and we because we don't have time. Sometimes it's that is what we prioritize. So try to practice that. Once you walk out, like just disconnect. No one is
Yes.
going to force you to turn on your phone. That is
Yes.
impossible unless they walk into your house. That to me might sound crazy, but I think it works. So
Daneyni, there's a few more questions coming in, but just mindful of time.
yes, I think we have time for one more question, and then we'll have to end.
Okay. And sorry, team. Just scanning through all the questions. I'm just going to go to the latest one that came through. How important do you think it is to recognize small wins on a team? Do you actively highlight progress or mainly focus on big outcomes? I'd love to start just with this one. Small wins are absolutely important to acknowledge. There is no such thing as a small win because it's about moving forward. If we focus on you think about your journey, you think about think about a marathon. You don't just go and run 26 miles. You start and then you taper back and you take what you learn from it. So I would add that not only do we celebrate wins, but we also celebrate failure. And why that's important because you want to make sure that people aren't afraid to try things, even though that means that, you know what, that didn't make sense. But something else comes out of that. And something much bigger than an idea comes out of that. And that's courage, that's creativity, and that speaks volume to the talent that you're bringing up, those future leaders that you're hoping to inspire. Daneyni, Lani?
Lani, would you like to continue with that one?
I think that was spot on, Martha. The only thing maybe to add is, really taking count in terms of overall, what are you learning? What's my learning in the situation? But no, that was perfectly said.
With that, though, I just wanted to say thanks everyone who joined us today and created space for this conversation and felt vulnerable to ask those questions as well. Thank you, both Lani and Martha, for joining, for sharing your experiences, for also being open and honest about, where what we all are in our careers and where we're working on and things that we had worked for us in the past and that is progressing with us as well. The one message that I want to end with is like remind everyone here that your well-being is part of your leadership. Please keep that in mind. And you deserve a pace that sustains you as well as allow others around you to grow. With that, I want to say thank you all and thank you again for joining us and have a great day. Remember, wellness month is right now, so let's practice on wellness. Thank you.
Thanks, Daneyni.
Have a
Bye,
great
Lani.
time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.